What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com. My name is Sean Sheehan and I am back with another edition of the betting show. And today we are looking ahead to Bellator 301, a really good Bellator card which goes down this weekend. And you know what? I decided to do a full Bellator betting show by itself. I already have the preview show out there, and I also will have a UFC betting show. So a double betting show this week. If you're looking for UFC bets, you'll have to go to that video. This video is for the Bellator bets, so double up. Everyone likes additional bets. Everyone likes more talk about bets and all of that. So that's what we've done for you here, and it's going to be a good week. Let's recap last week before we get into next week, and I'll do that over in the other one as well. So if you're just checking out this one, you can forward like 30 seconds in, or if you've already checked out the other one. Last week we went 2 of 4. In our bets, and the FLIER didn't hit. Obviously the FLIER was Pavlovich in the second round at plus 1,000, a massive FLIER, so that didn't hit. We're not too worried about that one. The 2 bets that didn't hit, Marco Madsen, bad pick. I did mention though, like if that was a loss, that'd probably be the last time we pick him, so lesson learned on that one, we would say it. Bartosz Lesko lost there. You know, I didn't see that fight, but I was reading on Sherdog the recap of it. Apparently he was doing pretty well, but ended up getting caught in the end. Unfortunate. But in the 2 wins we had, Yeri versus Alex went over the round and a half at minus 150, and then plus 150 for Jessica Andrade, which actually went out to plus 205 by the time the fight kicked off, which, you know, I said it on Twitter at the time. I said it last week on the betting show that was to me the craziest line I think I've seen in probably 2 years of doing this show. Might have been the craziest line. I just couldn't fathom that. But anyway, we came out. I'd say we came out ahead with those bets for last week, and we will pile through and go on to this week and look for some money and some winners out of this possibly last ever Bellator card, although I hope not, and it does seem like Bellator is going to continue even if PFL takes it over or whatever. That seems to be like the word gone out, so hopefully that is the case. But however, we will enjoy it while we have it and get straight into it here. Also, the overall record just for the year, 76 from 157 and 13 of the FLIERs to fit out of 39. So what's that, 1 from 3 in the FLIERs? That's not bad. I tried to get 1 from 2 in the other bets. You know, we haven't really hit that. Hopefully I have 10 bets for this week. So hopefully if we get all 10 of them, we'll be doing pretty well. But here are your 5 bets for Bellator 301. Right. First bet of the week is a pretty simple one. I'm going for Raufeon Stots, straight up money line bet, minus 120. Look, we have seen Raufeon Stots fighting against Danny Sabatello before. It was a very good win for Stots, obviously a relatively close fight. It was a split decision, but we all remember there was a bit of controversy around that, over 5 rounds. This is over 3 rounds, if I'm not mistaken, this time. And I have often thought that Raufeon Stots is one of the best 135 pounders in the world for a good few years now at this stage, or maybe a good few fights, let's put it that way. Lost to Patchy Mix last time out, but there's no shame in losing to Patchy Mix, probably the most improved 135er in the world over the last few years, and we'll talk about one of his fights later on. But it's very interesting to me, the mindset of these guys, how they bounce back. I was talking about it on the preview show, and I was like, maybe Sabatello has a bit of an advantage in the fact that he has obviously lost the Stots, then bounced back and got a win, but then lost to Magomedov again. Now he's going to have to bounce back again. Maybe that'll be an advantage to him. And I was very torn on this. But thinking about it a little bit more since recording and that and talking it through in my head, I just feel like maybe the fact that they have fought before and he's won before will kind of negate that. Right, it'll kind of take away the fact you're not thinking about your loss necessarily. You're thinking about the win against the guy who you're fighting next the last time you fought, and I do think that will help. The other part of it as well, I mentioned the 3 rounds versus 5 rounds. I do think that's a big advantage for Stots. I think he is a guy who is a better striker, who can afford to throw his shots a little bit more because he knows he's a very good wrestler as well, and he's shown that he can stop Sabatello's wrestling. You know, now Sabatello, I think he got 1 or 2 takedowns in every fight nearly he's had, and more than that in most of them. And he's always dangerous there. So it's not the fact, you wouldn't expect Stots to go in there and have 100% takedown defense or anything like that. But can he do enough on the feet to win that fight while stopping as many takedowns as he can? I think he probably can, and that's my main reason, honestly, for picking him here. The only drawback is if that loss will have sent him back an awful lot, right? That is my only gripe here. Other than that, I think, like Stots as well, you have to remember, Stots is a really good wrestler. Like it's funny when you say a guy like Sabatello or a guy like Covington and Usman is a similar sort of fight. Like, we're two very good wrestlers. I think, say, from Usman's point of view or from Covington's point of view, anyone's going to find it very tough to stop their wrestling. But then they fight each other twice, and it's, what would it be, 50 minutes, just a little less than 50 minutes, wouldn't it, of stand-up, basically. That tends to happen in fights like that, right? And if, let's say, that does happen here, it's 15 minutes of stand-up, I think Stots is massively favored. Now, Sabatello is not terrible on the feet or anything like that, but I do think Stots has an advantage there. I think he's a better fighter there. I think he'll be able to stop enough takedowns, maybe even get one or two of his own, and I do think he will win that fight. But that's probably the fight I'm maybe most looking forward to this weekend, outside of the big title fights, I suppose, UFC included. I love those two title fights on Bellator, but the Stots, Sabatello, Shy Talk, and all of that will be very, very fun this week. So I'm going for Raufeon Stots. I was surprised that the price was what it was, considering what had happened last time out. I'm actually looking at, I might need to readjust this in the notes here. I had it down as minus 120. He's minus 110 here, one place. He's actually plus 110 with one big bookmaker and minus 130 for Sabatello. So he's actually the underdog for one bookmaker. And, he's actually an underdog for multiple bookmakers. I'm just looking at it here, which is, to me, is very, very, very surprising. Like, what have they seen? Like, they've both lost one fight since then. Sabatello's win is against a guy who's not exactly world level, so interesting. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I'm definitely going for Raufeon Stots. We can adjust that price as it goes, but I'm looking at it here on the place we normally pick from, and it's minus 110. So we will have that down in the notes as minus 110 here for the first pick. All right, bet number 2 for this week. I'm over. I think it's a little bit of a risky one. It probably wouldn't have been a risky one a couple of fights back, but I'm going for Cody Law at minus 225 to win his fight against Jefferson Pontes. Look, Cody Law, he's a guy who's looked so good in a lot of his fights, but then when he went up in level and he fought James Gonzalez and Chris Lencioni, obviously he lost both of those fights and both of them went to a decision, but he bounced back last time out and won his fight. Got in there against Jefferson Pontes, who's 6-0, 27 years of age, making his debut here. He's a guy with a lot of finishes on his record. Watching a bit of him, he is, a well-rounded fighter. I would say a little bit of a green fighter, and a guy, I think, who can be dangerous against Law, but at the same time, if Law just kind of gets back to basics, right? Gets back to his takedowns, gets back to landing those, like against Colton Ham, landing big elbows for the finishes, throwing these big shots on the feet as well when he needs to. I really think he can win this fight. I think for Cody Law, he's a guy, fighting out of American Top Team. He's obviously very good training, taking a couple of losses now, which, again, I'll say they can either go well or they can go badly, right? And if you're a guy like Law and you're looking at it and thinking, right, I need to go to this next level, I need to to experience all of these things if I want to be, and if I wanted to achieve the potential that I had, I really think that this sort of fight is the sort of one you almost need to make a statement in. Right, you're getting in a guy now who's undefeated. Is he going to take your rub? Is he going to be the next guy who goes in? And we forget as well about these Bellator fights. Like, you could literally be fighting for your future here. You could be fighting for a contract. You could be fighting for, let's say if PFL take it over and go, oh, well, who am I going to pick? Who am I going to take forward? Like, if you say Pontes, oh, he's after beating Cody Law, I'm going to take him on. If you see Cody Law, he had a couple of losses, but he's won 2 in a row now. This guy could be a future star. It's a massive fight for those guys. And I don't know. I've always had a bit of belief in Cody Law. I like him. And it might have always been the case after a couple of those losses. I might have been saying, oh, I'm not sure about Cody Law, but like when you meet James Gonzalez after 6 fights, that's tough. Like Gonzalez is a very, very good fighter. Like there's no doubt about that. And he's had these losses and things like that, but he's beaten the likes of Pat Sabatini. He's been around the game for 17 fights now, around since 2016, coming up on 7 or 8 years as a pro. That really, really does help, and for a guy like Cody Law to have experienced that, hopefully it will do him wonders. If you're a fan of MMA, and I think his game stacks up well against Pontes here, so I'm going for him to win that one. It was one I was humming and hawing about. I actually didn't have it as my bet originally. I had Aliasiev to win, but his fight fell out, so I had to change it over and put in that one. But yeah, I do. It's one I was always relatively confident on, and I'm kind of glad I got to put it in there. So I'll go for that one there. Another bit I'm very confident on, and this one, this is an odd thing for me to say here, but I'm picking this one mostly on price. And it's funny because it's minus 270, and it's AJ McKee to win his fight against Sidney Outlaw. I find it very odd to be sitting here, right? It's one of Bellator's biggest ever cards. AJ McKee is on the card, and he's like not in like a big title fight, and okay, he's up at lightweight now, but I'm sure he could fight at featherweight again and all that, and tournaments going on. Absolutely, we know all that, right? But AJ McKee is 20 wins and 1 losses in his career. His 1 loss is to Patricio Ferreira, very close enough fight. Some would call it controversial, not me personally. I think it was a very good decision, in fact. But like, why is he not fighting for a title? Why is he not fighting Patricio? Why is he not in a massive fight? Like, he's fighting Sidney Outlaw. I just think it's very odd. I think it's very odd, right? And it feels a little bit like the bookmakers also think it's odd, because I was looking at this price earlier in the week. Let me just pull it up here and make sure this is correct. But AJ McKee opened at minus 225 on this, and he was minus 225 for a good while. Went into minus 250 ish, and is came all the way out. Some places he's over minus 300, right? But for a guy that talented to against a guy like, with all due respect to Sidney Outlaw, he's a good fighter, but like, I don't think he, unless something miraculous happens, right? And it could, right? It could. We've seen in MMA before. I just don't think he's on the level of AJ McKee. And like, he's only lost to good guys. Don't get me wrong. He's only lost to Tafik Masayev and Michael Chandler in the last few years. He lost a few fights early in his career, back 7 or 8 years ago. But I think AJ McKee should be looked at in a different level. And I don't think he is, right? And now, I'm kind of talking myself out of my bet here. Maybe there's a reason for that, right? Maybe all that talk, or lack of talk even, might get him. Like, because the last time out, or a couple of fights ago, in Spike Carlisle, I definitely think it got him. I think it got him the fact that he went in there in the Patricio fight and he was a changed fighter. He wasn't the same, And he went out and he goes, well, I'm not going to sit back on my laurels ever again in a fight like that. And he really changed up things. I just wonder if it'll either, will it be good or will it be bad for AJ McKee? And my thinking and my big reason for picking him here is I think it'll be good. All right. Even though like a lot of the conjecture there maybe for me might be thinking it's not going to be good. But what he did against Spike Carlisle, though, and not what he did, because I don't think it was actually a great performance, but it was a mentally good way to do it. Like, Francis Ngannou versus Derek Lewis was a great example of something that's like mentally terrible. And Francis obviously bounced back brilliantly from that, but I think he would probably agree. It's just you reacted to it mentally so bad. Obviously, Francis losing to Stipe, Patricio beating AJ. How AJ reacted was to come out and fight and throw everything out there, and almost end up losing against a far inferior opponent because of that. Right, it's almost a clean reset after that. Now he'd won fight in Risen, obviously, and he's back here fighting again against Sidney Outlaw. I think if you're to see AJ McKee fighting to his utmost, I think he'll get Sidney Outlaw out of there, and I think that price is pretty crazy. It is pretty crazy. So minus 270 for AJ McKee is the third bet of the week. The fourth bet of the week, this isn't, again, these prices aren't out too long, but this is a price that has gone in since I looked at it first, and I was very close to changing it. And it's Mike Hamel. So I'm going for Mike Hamel, and he's minus 225, right? So when the betting opened, he was minus 163. And I liked him at that. Went out to minus 173. I liked him at that. I'll tell you what, I'm a little less confident now than I was at those prices. Do you know what? I really like this fight as well. I think Mike Hamel is the type of guy, you look at his record and it's 11-5. And, you know, he doesn't have a lot of finishes, only 4 finishes in there, 7 decisions. And you might think, like, this guy is, okay, he's your normal middle of the range kind of, you know, lost to Usman Nurmagomedov, lost to Adam Barracks. He's kind of just going to be stuck there in the middle of the range for a long time. But I actually really rate him. I really like him as a fighter. I think he, you know, his hands are improved. I think, you know, he got a big head kick in a fight a couple of fights ago. His wrestling is always on point. He's a very, very good wrestler. And when he went in there against Usman Nurmagomedov, I thought, like, you know, he gave him a fight. He gave him a fight at least. Whereas a lot of people don't. And you see a lot of his opponents, you know, he goes in there and he just puts it on him. He really, really does. And I like that. And that's the reason why I'm picking him, right? But Tim Wilde. I was looking at Experiment, and our Experiment went to Elliott for some reason. Well, Tim Wilde is a guy who I have the utmost respect for. Obviously, fighting out of the UK, so not a million miles, obviously, across the water from me. And he is a guy you've watched. I've watched his career for a long, long time. Seen him in Cage Warriors and other places in Bama back in the day, and the whole lot. And thinking, like, this guy, I've always thought he's a good fighter, right? In the middle part of his career, obviously got the big opportunity against Bryn Primus, ended up losing that, and you're kind of thinking, okay, well, you know, he's 36 years of age. That fight happened 4 years ago. So you're thinking, like, 32 years of age, will he get an opportunity in Bellator again, or, you know, what's going to happen? And, like, what a run he's had since then. Beat Charlie Leary, beat Yves Landu, draw with Alfie Davis, beat Saul Rogers, beat Christopher Gonzalez last time out. What a run that has been. Like, Tim Wilde is a really good fighter. He's just a really good fighter. Like, again, a guy who isn't the biggest finisher in the world. You know, he's 7 finishes in 20 fights. 21 fights even, 9 decisions and a draw in there as well in terms of winning. Never lost a decision. So that's the reason why at minus 163 I was, now not so much, but I think I'm going on the pick alone. I think the pick is sound, so that's why I'm going for it. The reason I'm going for it, I do think, like, the one submission in there kind of tells a story a little bit if you're Mike Hamel. I think if you take Tim Wilde to the ground, you have, I suppose, a certain amount of control by yourself, but also a certain amount of control over, like, is he going to finish you there? Now, it's not that he's bad on the ground or anything like that, far from it indeed. But, like, I think you look at a guy's main method of victory normally, and for Hamel, it's, look, pressure, shots, and wrestling. And I think that might be a good game plan against Wilde now. Like, 36 years of age as well. I know he can't. I said he's still looking good now, but he can't be getting any younger. And when you push that pace, I think if you're Hamel, I think that's that's a way forward. So I'm going for Hamel in that fight. Minus 225, I believe. Minus 225. All right. The flyer of the week then. It's a bit of an unusual flyer this week because I'm going to give you a treble. And you're probably thinking, oh, Sean, you haven't talked about the big fights yet. So here we go. The treble is plus 350. Now this could be very different by the time by the time you see it here. It's Pettis, Amosov, and Chablis. So the treble of them is plus 350. Obviously, not a massive flyer there, but I do like this. Treble. I'll talk briefly about all three fights, maybe, because we'll be here all night. In other words, the Chablis against Patricky fight. I talked about this on the preview show, and I kind of found myself giving Patricky maybe more of a chance than maybe I should have. And now that I phrased that wrong. Yeah, obviously he has a chance. He's a good fighter, Patricky, and all of that. But maybe I oversold the closeness of the matchup. I do think Chablis is a significantly more skilled and better fighter than Patricky. And again, not saying Patricky isn't a good fighter. He's only 30 years of age as well, whereas Patricky is 37. Like, you look at the wins he's had. I mentioned Alfie Davis earlier on. He's beaten Tafik Masayev last time out, beaten Brent Primus. He's only lost one fight in his career in the last 10 years. Like, this guy is really, really, really good. Is, big power, good on the ground, 19 finishes and 23 wins. He can really do it all. This guy is an absolute beast. Patricky has made himself a really good career in the last few years. Like, we all know, we looked at the Pitbull brothers, and Patricio is the main man. Let's be honest here. But I think Patricky has kind of started fighting a little bit like him more than he did before. And I think that's kind of worked out for him. That kind of slow-paced power boxing in the middle of the cage. But I think, like, Chablis is not the type of guy who will stand there and allow that to happen. He'll get inside, get under with a takedown. Or he'll get inside and he'll punch the body, kick the body, use his jab, use his shots behind it. I don't think he's the type of guy that will, as I said, rest in his laurels, allow that control that the Pitbull brothers love to have. In fact, I think he'll be the one controlling it. So I like him. Now, it's not a massive price in there. He's around minus 570 or something like that. But it's obviously part of the treble. That's bet number one of the treble. Bet number two of the treble is Yaroslav Amosov. He's around, let me just check this again. He's around the minus 400, 410 mark. He's minus 400 here. Against Jason Jackson. I spoke about this in the preview show as well. I just think, and I was talking, I know I was talking on one podcast about it, but we discussed this fight and discussed every kind of integer, like the wrestling, maybe the in-between bits, the striking, even, the length, the speed, the athleticism. And it felt like in all of those arguments, Amosov wins. I think he's a better technical striker. I think he's probably a better wrestler. I think he is a better athlete. I think he's probably a little bit faster. Probably hits a little bit harder as well. And that's not to say Jason Jackson isn't a good fighter. I have been a massive fan of Jason Jackson for a long time. I love his style. I love the way he fights. He is a guy, he reminds me of the old school fighters, like a Kenny Florian or a Michael Bisping or people like that, who have taken every bit of what they could get and used it to their advantage. Like, he just feels like a guy who has gotten the utmost out of his career. And like, it could be even more, it could be even more by the time this fight comes around. But I just like Amosov here. I think there's a certain thing as well. Sometimes when you see a guy fight live, I've always respected Amosov and always knew how good he was. But when you see him and you're up close and you're cage side watching him, this guy is on another level. This guy is such a good fighter that, I think he will win this fight. And I honestly think he's the best welterweight in the world. I think he's fantastic. And the third big thing is Sergio Pettis is plus 200. Right, so this is where the treble can fall down. Because He is fighting Patchy Mix in a very, very, very interesting fight that could honestly go either way. It's closer on some other books. Obviously, as I said, this treble will range from probably a high price to a low price, depending where you book it. But I was looking for obviously, there's no props out for Bellator yet. Will there be? Probably 5 minutes before the card, but that's no good for me. I have to put a video out. So I was kind of reaching for one. And what would I do here? Where would I get my FLIER from? And I was going to pick Pettis as a straight up price. Like, that plus 200 is just, to me, it's too much. I think this is a real pick'em fight. And I've designed the FLIER, I suppose, out of that. And I really like both of these guys. I like the way they fight. But you know what? One thing I cannot ignore. I can't ignore how good Sergio was last time out. Like, as I said, I did a previous show. You can go back and you can watch all of that. And we'll do a bit of a breakdown here, maybe even in a second. But you break down Patchy, and he's a very good fighter, right? His boxing has improved. I don't think there's a skill set anyone has in MMA that has improved as much as Patchy Mix's boxing has in the last 2 years, 3 years. Honestly, I think he's gotten that good, right? Very good on the ground, very good submission artist and all that. Just a brilliant fighter. In my opinion, the most improved fighter in the world. UFC, One Championship, Bellator, PFL, anywhere in the last few years. Phenomenal. Really phenomenal. But I can't ignore what Sergio Pettis did to Patricio Pitbull last time out. He destroyed him over 5 rounds. And not a landing big shots, knocking a guy down and all of that sort of destruction. Just a technical mastery, a tactical mastery against the guy who's used to fighting bigger guys. And some people say, he was faster than him. He was a bit faster than him, but I don't think it was all necessarily speed. I think it was gumption, intelligence, all of that. He was phenomenal. He was phenomenal in that fight. And my clear thinking here is, can he do the same thing to Mix? Right? And if he can do it to Patricio, why could he not do it to Patchy Mix? And I can't get past that, right? In a fight that I think is very close, two guys with real high quality, that is where the buck stops for me. I just think Pettis was so good the last time out. I think he can replicate it. I think he can do it again. And that's it. That's the treble. Those are the 5 bets for the week. Let me recap them here. Actually, we'll have a look at a few of the other Bellator prices while we're here before we get to that and recap all of them. So the straight up price on that is plus 200 minus 275 for Mix and Pettis, Sabatello, and Stots. Obviously, we talked about that. Moving in and out around now, as I said, one's a favourite, the other is a favourite. I was saying going for Pettis in the first one. I'm going for Stots in this one around the minus 110. Even he's actually more of a plus fighter in places, plus 110 as well. Interesting. Someone was asking me on the comment section actually about Timur Khizriev against Justin Gonzalez. Again, I think that price is a little bit wide. I don't know that I necessarily bet on it, but I do like Khizriev in that one. I like Kielholz in her fight against Inaba, even though Inaba is the favourite there. Colgan is a massive favourite, over minus 1,000 in some places. Obviously, you'll be getting him there. Do like Kerry Taylor Melendez in her fight. She's a minus 250 favourite. Matthias Mata against Palencia. Mata had the favourite minus 200 there. I'll go for him. Hamel and Wilde. I'm going for Hamel. Again, not my most confident pick ever. I like Mamedov at minus 200 over the plus 150. Kilis Mata. I do like Ramzan Kurmagomedov as well, but a massive price there, minus 549. Watched a bit of Randall Wallace, thinking maybe he could try him in as a FLIER. Probably not though. Kobayashi and Landu the favourite there, minus 200, and Cody Law as well. I'm going for him. See, minus 225. A couple of the other fights then. Jackson Amosov, the straight up prices. Plus 260 for Jackson, minus 400 for Amosov is the price in one place. I think that's about right. Shibley is a minus 549 favourite, plus 350 for Patricky. AJ is from anywhere from minus 270 to minus 330 to plus 230 for Sidney Outlaw. If AJ McKee doesn't turn up, absolutely, but I feel like he will. Gallman Fortune then is plus 140. Underdog Gallman Fortune at minus 188. And there's a few. The Isia fight is cancelled, and the Velasquez fight as well is cancelled over there. So just to recap the bets from the for Bellator: Raufeon Stots around the minus 110, Cody Law minus 225, AJ McKee minus 270, minus 225 for Mike Hamel. I've given a lot of minus bets this week. I don't necessarily like doing that, but look, that's the way the cookie crumbles. I'm not going to give you losers here if at all possible. And then we have the FLIER plus 350-ish, Pettis, Amosov, Chablis for the FLIER this week. All right, everyone, that's it for me. Thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.